This is a tense back and forth that erupted yesterday outside the airport in Austin between two Texas lawmakers. Talking about Democratic Congressman Greg Casar and Republican Senator John Cornyn. They got into it after Cornyn arrived to deliver burgers to TSA agents working without pay due to the partial government shutdown. Cornyn has blamed Democrats for blocking the DHS funding bill. Casar, a Democrat who represents the Austin area, arrived at the airport first and was talking to reporters when Cornyn showed up. Watch.
Senator Cornyn should put his money where his mouth is. Hey, Senator. Senator, I was hoping that we could.
Why don't you tell your Democrats to vote to pay these poor
Let's do it. Let's do it.
No,
why don't
you do it.
No, we don't have to. You don't have to yell at me.
Time and time again.
Let's go. Let's talk for a second, Senator.
No,
there's a bipartisan bill to fund just the TSA. Can we do that together?
Not acceptable.
Not acceptable to fund just the TSA.
How about all the terrorist attacks like we've seen down on 6th Street? You want those to continue? These people are keeping us safe. Tell the Democrats to vote for funding the DHS.
Let's talk about each one. Would you fund the TSA with me?
Sounds like
instead of bringing people burgers, he should bring them their paychecks, which involves funding TSA. He's refused to fund TSA, so he's bringing them burgers. He's over here talking about funding ICE, but when I asked him about funding TSA, he said he wouldn't fund TSA.
As a background, Cornyn is, of course, locked in a very contentious runoff for the Republican primary in the Texas Senate race against Ken Paxton. Might be why he's throwing some red meat out there. And then separately, there is a debate on Capitol Hill about if there should be specific bills to fund basically everything else under DHS other than ICE and CBP. We'll see if that manifests. But it comes as more U.S. airports are seeing extremely long security lines amid the partial government shutdown that's now in its 5th week. The New York Times reports that a growing number of TSA employees have picked up second jobs, sometimes calling out sick to do so after missing their first full paycheck last Friday. So far, more than 300 officers have outright quit. This was the scene at the airport in Fort Lauderdale yesterday. Other big hubs are also reporting painfully long lines like Houston, Atlanta, Newark, and LaGuardia in New York. I want to bring in MS Now reporter Arielle Hickson. She's been covering the impact on these TSA agents. I mean, you were talking to the president of the TSA Workers Union in Atlanta just last week, and he was talking about the strain that these workers are under. It's not the first time in the last 6 months either.
Oh, yeah. So in the past 6 months, this is the third full paycheck that they have missed. And at this point, you have to wonder, where does this all stop? And, according to the Department of Homeland Security, over the weekend, the amount of call-out rates just surged, especially at Houston Airport, where it went over 55%. And as you mentioned, this is because these workers have to figure out other means of getting some type of income during this time. There's so many that I spoke to from Atlanta to Houston to Dallas who say that they're taking on jobs with Lyft or Uber. Some are facing eviction notices because, at this point, when you're struggling with some type of, salary or income issue, it's not like all these bills are going to wait for you.
Correct.
So there's a number of TSA workers who are sleeping in their cars because gas prices are high and they might not even have an affordable place to live at this point, yet they're still kind of clutching on to these jobs. I think the state of America at this point is what is just baffling, especially as they're trying to get through this shutdown.
Yeah, and we saw the heads of various airlines yesterday or 2 days ago say in an open letter to Congress, you have to reopen it because for these folks, their income insecurity is not because they're not showing up to work or because they aren't doing the job. They're doing all those things. It's the government that's basically holding their paychecks hostage in this larger battle over whether or not to fund ICE, which Democrats feel has become unruly and needs to be reined in after what we saw in January in Minneapolis. So all of this is piled on top of each other. But we talk about how this is the third time in 6 months that they've missed paychecks. It's because there was another government shutdown at the end of last year, the longest ever. And they were once again pawns is the word that we've heard people use in this situation, pawns in that as well.
Absolutely. And I think, before jobs like this used to be stable. It's like, yes, I'm going to get a federal job. It's going to be great. But, at this point, the question is, how is this going to continue in the future? How are younger individuals going to look at this particular position? And, they're not in the higher income bracket. They're making between $35,000 to $45,000 per year. So this isn't a population that can really afford to take these types of hits. And, we're getting to the point as well where it's getting so bad that airports across the country are asking passengers to donate. You have Denver Airport asking for $10 and $20 grocery and gas gift cards. You have Las Vegas and Vermont opening up food banks. I mean, how do you have an airport opening up a food bank at this point? I think it's just it's a call to action to Congress. That's what so many of these TSA workers have been saying to me, that they want Congress to do something, but they're losing faith.
And yet, do they think this has typically been a pressure point in past negotiations over government funding? It feels like it's not the pressure point that it was right now. Do they feel that way? Is that me looking at this politically cynically? What are they telling you?
They're telling me at this point they feel as if it feels as if they're going to be in this point indefinitely. I think that's the issue. I think in the past, especially with the last shutdown and in previous shutdowns, we've seen, hey, as soon as those lines get long and it's going to impact, I guess, the larger general public, lawmakers tend to shift a bit. But, when it's gotten to this point, it's a second time that we're experiencing shutdown and it's affecting them. I think they're kind of throwing their hands in the air and trying to find other means.
Yeah. And I do think, again, there are conversations on the Hill about figuring out other ways to fund different parts of DHS without having to reopen it wholesale. Right now, those are not in any serious, meaningful way off the ground in terms of negotiations, but it's a conversation, and this is why, because there is so much pain being felt at the worker level, at TSA, and at other offshoot agencies. We'll see where it goes. I think they're right. Indefinite is probably the word that I would use too, just talking about the politics of this. MS Now reporter Arielle Hickson, thank you for coming on, telling these stories. It's really important.